Can you install a natural gas heater and an electrical subpanel into a detached garage for under $2,600? The gas heater above me and this electrical panel might just be proof that you can. Household electrics come a long way since 2025, but for some reason, garages always have one puny 15 or 20 amp circuit ran out to them, and that's it. Well, I'm dealing with that right now, and I'm tired of huffing heater fumes in the winter and not being able to use the full potential of my welders. So I asked the almighty ChatGPT what it would cost to have someone install a proper permitted heater and subpanel in this detached garage. The final quote for parts, labor, and peace of mind: $11,000 to $17,000. Now, I'm not too sure about the accuracy of AI, but I do know I don't even own a single car that costs that much, let alone have that sitting around in my savings account. Today, we're ditching the pros, ignoring the permit office, and doing the entire electrical and gas run, all the way from the gas meter and the household panel in the basement, and right back to this detached garage for under $2,500. Now, this is going to take some help from my friends, family, and the almighty internet, because if there's one thing YouTube taught me, it's that you absolutely can do professional level work very poorly. Are we going to break some building codes along the way? Absolutely. Is the cheapest unreviewed natural gas garage heater going to spontaneously combust? Hopefully not, but you should stick around to find out. Now, just to be clear, this is not a step-by-step guide. This is not legal advice, and I'm 100% filming this outside of the United States. Puerto Rico, I think. Actually, I just realized I don't even own this house. But seriously, this is not a step-by-step, full-on walkthrough, so you should definitely consult a professional if you're even thinking about pulling off a job of this scope. Now, with that being said, you will learn a lot of stuff that you can do yourself, and a lot of things that you probably shouldn't do by watching me do them anyway. Welcome to Drubuilt. Let's save 10 grand and give the internet something to criticize. Now, the first part of any electrical job is going to be fishing wires, and I've got news for you. If you don't want to stick your hand in the wall and fish wires, now would be a good time to put down the tools, stop the project, and use your soft hands to call an electrician, because we're about to put some holes in the wall.
Oh, I got it.
Easily the most invasive part of this whole job is fishing wires and drilling holes through the side of your house or foundation so electricity can escape into the wild. But before we turn the Drubuilt headquarters into the Swiss cheese right before winter, we've got to get the wires from their panel to their exit strategy. And how are we going to do that? By strategically drilling holes in the finished ceiling of my 70-year-old basement and going forearm deep into it like a crackhead looking for copper. Huge shout out to my guy Joe for coming over on a school night and spending 2 straight hours elbow deep inside my sweet walls. A true friend.
I got it.
I compensated him with a reverse seared chuck roast, which I feel is fair market value for that level of commitment. And trust me, this time lapse doesn't do it justice to how long, itchy, and questionable this part actually was.
Can you slide it? Just keep sliding it into the light. Oh, baby. A little more. Just a little more.
With the hardest of the indoor wire fishing behind us, Joe could finally head home and get some sleep because he's got work tomorrow. He's an independent contractor who professionally relocates catalytic converters, and he works nights. It's cash only. So this house is running an almost fully maxed out 100 amp panel, and yeah, adding a 60 amp sub panel to it is definitely pushing it, but since there's no central AC in this place, it shouldn't immediately burn it down. What Joe and I just ran is number 6 UFB underground wire for the sub panel, plus a floating number 8 wire for the future panel upgrade and the central AC install, because planning ahead's a lot cheaper than fishing it twice. Stick with me, we'll show you the full plan in a second, but just like the rest of this project, before we do any real thinking, let's blast a few more holes in my ceiling and my siding. Nothing adds spice to a DIY project like shooting first and asking questions later. I like to play a fun little blind guessing game called Find the Stud while deciding how to cut the access hole, so we can drill another hole. Yes, you heard that right, we're cutting a hole so we can drill one. Once I had a pretty good idea of where the stud was, I aimed for the middle, so I can screw the drywall back in later and pretend this never happened. I broke out my Bauer multi-tool, aka Fred, powered by Milwaukee battery, because I'm a cheap SOB with brand loyalty issues. After inhaling half a sheet of drywall, I had to call in the prettiest dust control gal in the Midwest to help me out, and now that the access hole is cut, we can finally decide where the electric is going to leave the house.
Well, that's not nerve-wracking or anything. Oh yeah, it's not even close. We gotta drill the bigger hole.
Much better. Box is nice and straight now.
Before we get any deeper into this bad idea, let's do a quick recap of the plan, and I'm using that word very loosely. The gas line starts at the meter on the opposite side of the house from the garage. It was supposed to run about 30 feet along the foundation to meet the electric right here. but like every project I touched, that plan lasted roughly 5 minutes. We'll talk about that mistake later. Gas is going 12 to 18 inches underground, then backfilled with about 6 inches of dirt, then the electric runs right on top. Not because that's the best practice, but because it doubles as a very expensive tracer wire for when I forget where the gas line is. From there we enter the garage, set the sub panel, and run the gas along the ceiling to the heater. For now. That'll probably change once I regret it, or once you guys see me do something differently in the video. So that's the MO. And with expectations properly lowered, it's time for the biggest and most important day of this entire build, trench day. A massive shout out to Bobby, also known as Bob Dog, and my Uncle Joey for showing up bright and early to save me from myself. My Uncle Joey's 70 years old and he absolutely lives for this stuff. I called him for a couple pieces of advice, and somehow that turned into him clearing his entire Saturday to come do real work while I supervised poorly. They threw me on trencher duty, which is basically the adult version of keeping me out of the way, and they immediately got to running the gas line like professionals. Meanwhile, I'm just trying not to tip the machine over. We actually had to pry the shovel out of Uncle Joey's hands because he refused to stop working. I had to remind him that as the foreman, his job is to point at the hole and say dig here, not actually dig it, even though he absolutely could. Seriously. Uncle Joey's a machine. I know the people on YouTube are going to have a fit if we don't film us removing the bonding strip. They're going to be like, you can't have a bonded sub panel. You can't do that. After footing the bill for 125 feet of 6-gauge underground UFW cable, I was starting to realize why crackheads make a living out of stealing that shit. Lucky for me, my Uncle Sam had around about 100 feet of 6-gauge cable laying around and said I could have it for free, and he's so young, dumb, optimistic, and hasn't taken his first of many unwanted hardware store trips. See, I thought I was going to get away with not buying any more 6-gauge, but this wire wasn't long enough for what I wanted to do, so we had to make the run to Menards and drop a couple $100 on 6.3 Romex. Ouch. Gotta measure everything out to be sure the 40-minute round trip is worth it, and hit up Menards so they can take a little bit more of my paycheck. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, we did some pretty intense work the other day, and we got it all done in one day, and that resulted in me lacking on the filming. I would like to apologize about that, and I'm gonna let you know from here on out in the video, we're not messing around. Now we've got the gas hooked up from the meter at the house to the meter at the garage, and we've got the wiring underground from the side of the house into the garage. Now it's time to start working with that electrical panel because it's roughed in and the breaker's off, but we don't have any outlets hooked up to it. I've went ahead and made the executive decision to leave the circuit that's powering the lights in here alone just because it goes under the concrete, and I'm really not trying to touch any of that. And before we start running these outlets, I'm going to have to move my money pit out of the garage so we can get to the electrical panel. With the panel mounted and the wiring officially assaulting my bank account, it was time to plan the first and obviously most important outlet, the welding outlet. I'm planning to drop this right behind the welding table, but because I'm apparently intimidated by the pitch of my own roof, I decided to skip on the top plate entirely. I ran it in what I'm calling an unconventional manner, which is really just DIY code for I already hate how I did this and will absolutely redo it later when the shame finally catches up to me. It's a mess compared to the 120 volt circuits I did later, but at that point, I had already accepted my fate as a total hack. Naturally, my camera died while I was fishing the wire from the ceiling to the junction box. I know, iconic, but my camera is also my phone, so cut me some slack. While the screen was black, I spent a good 25 minutes flipping the wire orientation back and forth like a confused primate, trying to solve a puzzle, eventually getting it to lay flat through dumb perseverance. Wiring my first ever sub panel was a pretty humbling experience. I started with the 6-gauge UFB cable, which is basically a rigid rubber-coated python. I finally understand why this stuff is rated for underground burial. It's tougher than my will to live and twice as stubborn to trim it. Then there's the 6.3 Romex. At the current price of copper, I've reached the stage of grief where I'm actually complimenting the hand feel of the wire. I'm out here telling myself the rubber sheathing is supple and premium, just to justify the fact that I spent a car payment on a few yards of metal. It's a coping mechanism, and it's all I have left. With the sheathing stripped and the 50 amp breaker finally hooked up, the only thing left to do is to route this monster to its final destination and pray I don't trip the grid for the entire county. At this point, if there are any electricians watching me strip the Romex in the wrong spot for the box, mount the connectors upside down, or staple a 240 volt circuit directly to the face of the joist like a total barbarian, just know that I hate myself more than you ever could. My bad, dog. This is the part that keeps me up at night. I convinced myself a 90-degree drill attachment and a spade bit wouldn't fit to drill the top plate, so instead of trying that first, I built an elaborate, ugly workaround. Behold my masterpiece, a junction box on the ceiling, exposed Romex running wherever it felt like, and a top plate behind the speaker that I basically attacked with a dull beaver's teeth. It's not my proudest moment, it's not even in the top 50. I might revisit this disaster once I financially recover from the crimes I committed in the copper aisle and get the wiring up into the attic where it belongs, but for now, it stays. So feel free to absolutely cook me in the comments. With the outlet hooked up, it's time for the scariest part. Can you help me with something?
No.
Alright. So there's one at the bottom that says 60. I need you to press it, and then I need you to listen for screams. Alright, go ahead and flick it. Okay, nothing's on fire. Nothing's on fire. No sparks or anything like that. Oh man, I don't know, I'm so nervous. That's pretty cool. I cannot stop going to hardware stores. Hopefully this is the last trip. Now that I got my big white caulk out, we're gonna see what we can do with it. And you know what they say, it's not all the way full, but it's not about the size of the tube, it's how you use it. Sometimes you just gotta be a little careful at the tip before you start working it. Never mind. Now, eagle-eye viewers might have noticed the gaping accidental portal to Narnia board in my wall earlier. I'd love to tell you that there was a structural reason for it, but the truth is I'm just a man with a drill and a complete lack of impulse control. Off camera, I ran around the garage like an idiot until I found the chunk I drilled out, then glued it back into the wall like nothing happened, and after that we committed to the obvious hack job, caulking over a weird quarter-inch backing so we could clean up our terrible work with a little more terrible work. It's the ultimate DIY inception, covering up shoddy work with even shoddier work. I'm a visionary of incompetence. Nice. Well, that doesn't look great, and one day I will stop saving prep work for the last second and treating it like an afterthought. Today is not that day. Luckily, since I'm the one who painted this garage, I had some leftover paint to help mask my crimes. Now, let's be real, I'm perfectly fine with a patch job that looks like it was performed by a blindfolded toddler, so long as the colors match. I have priorities, I just refuse to disclose where they start, or more importantly, where they stop. I even went as far as paint matching the wiring in the junction box that legally shouldn't even be there. It's the ultimate lipstick on a pig scenario. Topped it off with a shiny new wall plate for the 240 volt outlet to distract me from the spot where I poked the wet caulk and left a finger indent. Very demure, very mindful, just like the kids say. Now, we've got a few other outlets in mind, and maybe a few too many, but Midwest winter is creeping in, my propane stash is basically a fond memory, and I'm the idiot who started planning this in July and is now panicking in November. I am a professional procrastinator, and if there's a way to delay my own survival, I will absolutely find it. I spent an impressive amount of time just staring at a wall until a plan appeared. That plan involved building a 2x4 frame for the heater mounts so I could clamp them to some premium attic scrap I scavenged like a raccoon. I also insisted on mounting the heater in a very specific, very inconvenient spot because apparently I enjoy adding difficulty to my own life. And of course, I refuse to buy actual mounting hardware. I am selectively cheap, I'll spend a week's pay on copper wire without blinking, but I would rather freeze than spend $10 on a proper bracket that I could weld myself. So this thing only has to hold about 70 pounds. Should I test it?
Send it. Hey, you're pulling it out.
Did it really? With me? That's alright. If you've watched any Drubuilt garage videos, you already knew this was coming. At some point, I have to shoehorn in an over-engineered, wildly time-consuming welding project, and congratulations, you've officially reached that part of the video. I dug up some leftover ERW tubing from the Trailblazer build and some 3/16 C-channel from the hack job I did on my S10 C-notch, and due to the layout of my roof joist, we're building this heater mount like it's an engine mount. And listen, it's totally reasonable. I'm sure you agree with me fully on this. This 110 volt buck tool belt sander is an absolute game changer for fabrication. I'm glad I built this over-engineered stand for it, and I'm also glad that this newly installed sub panel isn't setting on fire or popping the breaker. Had I done this on my 110 volt setup, we'd be watching a compilation of me flipping my breaker every 15 minutes. I jigged the frame into place so I could work with it using pocket holes in the attic floor, which is a true high-level fabrication play. If you don't enjoy making 15 trips to the belt sander or cutting the same tube 3 times because you lack spatial reasoning, I hate to say this, but tube fabrication probably isn't going to be green eggs and ham for you. Getting a perfect TIG fit up is a constant struggle for me personally, but since you're a YouTube commenter, I'm sure you're a 10th degree black belt with a PhD in metallurgy and can do this better with a car battery and a coat hanger. As you can see, we did cheat a little and tack everything together with the MIG welder. Yes, I could have used the TIG, but by that point in the day, I was done being fancy and just wanted it to stick. Precision welding gave way to emotional welding. This was also the maiden voyage for the welder on the new 240 volt circuit, which is a fun mix of exciting and wondering if I wired my own house correctly. Fit up wasn't perfect, there were definitely some gaps, but that just means the welds get to work harder. Overall, it was a great learning experience for tube fab and tube welding, and the best part, no issues with the panel so far, which means it's either perfect or the problem hasn't shown up yet. Now, of course, since there were some gaps, these mounts did move a bit when I welded them out, so I had to use a longer lag bolt and some spacers to get the mount back as close to perfectly level as I could.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
70-pound heater should be just fine. With the help of my mischievous little assistant, who is significantly more useful than I am, we finally wrestled the heater into position. But first, I had to perform an emergency relief cut on my mount because despite spending 18 hours fabricating it, I forgot that objects supply physical space. But once that was done, we could keep the train rolling. Don't go anywhere though, because we're about to approach what is very likely the dumbest decision that I made in this entire project.
The next day.
I broke out the multi-tool and a bargain bin right angle drill bit to finally tackle the top plate for my first 120 volt circuit. It turns out that using the correct tools, even the cheap ones, actually works better than throwing a tantrum and running wire across the ceiling. Who knew? I was just starting to get the hang of playing Sparky and imagining a career where I don't accidentally ground myself, but my frozen toes had other plans. As much as I enjoyed wrestling with Romex, I had to pivot my attention to warmer climates and start making sure this heater actually functions before the Midwest winter turns me into a human popsicle for the 15th year in a row now. So the garage is in a complete state of disarray, and I've done a ton of work without you guys. Again, I'm really trying to work on that. We've done a lot of time lapsing, so let's give you an actual recap of where we're at. We've got a circuit mapped to the heater and hanging in front of the panel. We've got a circuit under the belt sander for a separate 120 volt circuit. We've got another standalone 120 volt circuit mapped out and cut into the wall. And unfortunately, we haven't beat winter. It's the day after Black Friday, and for some of you professionals, that would be Saturday, and we've got a lot of inches of snow, like a lot of inches, like, you know, a lot. So I want to shift my focus to the heater because we now need to run an exhaust and the gas line from the gas meter underground to this part of the garage. That should be fun because there's a lot of inches of snow on the ground.
we gotta do a little landscaping.
Probably should have put the pipe dope on there, because that's like perfect. But you know, we live and we learn. Mixing up a Blue Monster smoothie.
So we're back on another day. We've got the gas lines mounted. I actually mocked them up in place off camera. I'm not sure if you guys have ever tried to learn how to do something, film it properly, and narrate to a camera, but it's actually sort of difficult to do. Nonetheless, I'm putting you back on the time lapse, and I'm going to show you guys how I got this plumbed up. The gas pipe inside the garage was actually way less complicated than I expected, which is usually a bad sign. I love overthinking the easy stuff until I'm paralyzed, then charging blindly into the part that turns into a real problem. You guys see the pattern? That's right, me either. Anyways, we wired the circuit for the heater, only to realize it's a direct wire setup, so yeah, I bought an extra outlet for absolutely no reason. That's a true financial mastermind move, brought to you by not reading the instructions. Then we started mocking up the exhaust using leftover S10 exhaust parts, because obviously that made sense at the time, and that's when we ran into a very small issue, or a very large one. Remember when I said we were approaching the dumbest decision of this whole project? Yeah, this is it, and honestly, this might be a conversation we should have in person. So a little recap on what we just got done. We got the gas hooked up to the heater. We got the electric hooked up to the heater. We got the sub panel wired in. We've got an extra 120 circuit wired in almost fully. And we've got the 240 volt circuit wiring for the welder hooked up. And now it's time to do the last step, which is going to be the exhaust for the heater. I just got home from work. It's currently 6:53 p.m. on a Tuesday, and it's 20 degrees outside with many inches of snow. Just check out the S10 and this project trailer that you can check out on our YouTube shorts, because we've got some stuff coming for it. Now, I originally wanted to horizontally vent this thing because it's a lot easier, and there's about 6 inches of snow on the roof, maybe 10, who knows. I'm not really a professional on inches, if you know what I mean. So I drilled the pilot hole and stopped myself, and I was like, wait, maybe I should just go measure my soffit, because I know that comes lower than it does inside. And of course it did, so I almost drilled into my soffit. That was sketchy.
I absolutely hate this part. Oh wait, before we...
At this point, we have no option but to vertically vent this, so I've got a pilot hole set up. I'm going to drill that pilot hole, and we're going to attempt something that you guys might think is reckless.
Welcome to Drubuilt, and today we're going to be climbing on my roof and drilling holes in 10 feet of snow.
We got to start by cleaning a bunch of snow off of here so I can actually get up there. And I'll actually end up torching the spot that we're going to mess with, just to warm up the shingles. Can't believe I didn't beat the snow, but I gotta believe it. If I fall, you guys gotta call 911. Guys? Here goes nothing. After cleaning off the snow, melting the frozen roof shingles, and getting everything in place, my battery literally gave out on the drill. It's dead. Gone. Rip 18-volt DeWalt. So I had to reformulate the plan and cut from the inside with a jigsaw. That was angering. I 100% gave up on filming that disaster. Oh my god, guys, this is brutal. I'm freezing. I don't recommend this to anybody. I would never recommend this to somebody that I like. But we're getting there. I just need to put the storm collar and the rain head on. We can wire up the circuit, wire up the thermostat, and test this thing out. Hey boys, that was sketchy and I'm freezing, but we got her done. After a few sketchy calls and a brand new roof vented exhaust, we could finally move on to the two 120 volt circuits already landed in the sub panel. These were supposed to be the last steps, but we'll circle back to that lie later. This was the last time the wire fishing decided to cooperate. It went so smoothly that I developed a rather large and unearned chip on my shoulder. I zipped through the permanent wiring for the heater and the outlet behind the sander, strutting around like I'd just been appointed Chief Electrical Inspector of the Midwest. Now this was my first ever electrical sub-panel wire up, and yes, thanks to an electrical Q&A Facebook group, I am fully aware that I didn't trim the Romex back far enough and my connectors are upside down. I was also informed that I'm a complete hack and personally responsible for every fire that has ever happened in human history, past, present, and future. Appreciate the feedback, boys. Alright, well, it's time to flip the brake around and see what happens. We got a gas problem, I think. Brother, something's happening now. Sounds like we got a flame. That's right.
We got heat, baby. Oh, the air's getting warmed up.
Brother, I'm just blessed. I feel grateful as hell right now.
Check out the exhaust. It's puffing away, man. That's pretty cool.
Oh, we're cooking.
Dare I say, cooking with gas. I gotta stop around.
Pamela the propane heater. Do you have any last words? I have some for you. You have punched above your weight class for over 2 years now in a 2-car garage with an uninsulated attic. And now it's time for you to go to a new owner from Facebook Marketplace. One owner, clean title, custom TIG welded fan brace. I know what I got. With spirits lifted and my booty cheeks significantly warmer, we called this a milestone and cleaned up the garage. Honestly, if you're a simpleton like me, a clean workspace is the only way progress happens, and speaking of booty cheeks, just ignore that blurred out section, it's for your protection, not mine.
The next day.
The victory lap ended pretty quickly though. The thermostat that came with this heater was absolute junk, so we swapped it for an Amazon Smart Thermostat and enter the wire fishing battle. It's a special kind of mental and physical trauma that my untrained hiney just wasn't prepared for. The wire practically begged to go into its hole, and honestly I was more than happy to oblige, but once it was all the way in and settled, it decided it wasn't coming back. I was sweating, I was breathless, but those sweet walls just wouldn't let go. Apparently I'm great at the going in part, but the pulling out part, total failure. Happens to the best of us. Am I right, boys?
Explain what you got, Andrew.
I have, hopefully, the problem solver, alright? I battled with this for like 4 hours last night, and for you guys it was a 20-second time lapse, so.
The piece de resistance. New Drubuilt merch available on the website now.
Drubuilt merch.
Drubuilt.printful.me.
I mean, I don't have to say anything.
I forgot my Drubuilt shirt today. I'm a scumbag.
Why? Oh, brother. If at first you don't succeed, spend $100 at Home Depot. So I might add, I'm a glutton for punishment. What do I mean by that? Well, I've got one more circuit in mind, just because I want to have a lot of 120 volt stuff here. I don't like when the lights flicker when big tools turn on, and I'd like to have just a dedicated circuit for the belt sander and a dedicated circuit for the air compressor. That means we've got to run one more 120 volt circuit right over here in this area. I'm thinking directly below that outlet where I've already got the top plate drilled out, just so I have that auxiliary outlet and that auxiliary standalone circuit on 120 volts. And yeah, I am definitely a glutton for punishment because this is a lot more work, but hey, we're in here, and hopefully this is the last time I ever have to touch the electric in this garage. Why don't you all join me in the Drubuilt parts attic to see exactly what I'm talking about? Now, mind you guys, I am not an electrician. I am not advising that this is how you should do it, but this is the first time I've ever worked on electric, and I'm realizing that yes, this is against code to go on the face of the joist up here. You should be drilling through, but this garage was already plumbed just with Romex, and I might argue that the way they did it was sketchier than the way I did it. So we've got to start mapping out this last 120 volt circuit, and the first part involves pulling it through the wall over by the panel, and it's arguably my second least favorite part. Ooh, that's a beautiful sight right there. That's a beautiful sight right there. That was a hard-fought battle, but got it through. The insulation wanted to fight, and I just wish somebody could tell the insulation, like, hey bro, we're both on the same team. We want the room to be warm. I also want voltage. And apparently, insulation's got beef with voltage. This is why you run conduit and you don't jerry-rig your garage together. We eventually got the wire into the box, and before the pros in the comments have a heart attack, yes, this is what I mean by against code. I'm not an electrician, but I do build cars. So this wiring got the full budget engine harness treatment. We're talking P-clamps and zip ties holding on for dear life. It might not be official, but it's neat enough for my attic, and it won't obstruct any storage up there. And of course, just when you think you've won, the hardware store bandit strikes when you least expect it. And we ran out. And that's going to be another Menards trip. Yeah, we're saving money, but we sure as hell ain't saving any time. After yet another trip to the hardware store for more Romex, I finished the circuit, wired the outlets, hit them with the outlet tester, and then fixed my other miscut using a trimmed wall piece, some wood glue, and caulk. Very official, very structural. I also ended up repainting the entire wall because apparently I can't stop once I start, and yeah, I have issues, but it was totally worth it. And finally, imagining a future emergency where someone other than me has to shut this thing off, I went ahead and properly labeled the breakers in the panel. Growth, maturity, character development, whatever you want to call it. Check everything out, because we can pretty much call this done. If you're still watching at this point, go on now. Go ahead. Pat yourself on the back because you're the GOAT. Here's a peek at the math for everything it costs to do this. It came in right at around $2,300. That even includes renting the trencher, and Home Depot did some weird stuff with my card, so that total is going to be give or take $2,300. However much it really is, I know we did it for under $2,600. Now that's a really big chunk of change, but for me, it's worth it. And let me show you why. Now, I just want to say a genuine thank you to you guys. Whoa. My bad, twin. Anyways, I just want to genuinely say thank you for over 40,000 views on my last garage video and almost 100,000 views on our Trailblazer build video. It's currently New Year's Eve 2025, and we're sitting just under 5,000 subscribers, and I genuinely can't believe there's that many of you guys that are interested in my shenanigans. I put a ton of time, effort, and money into this video, so thank you so much for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. I hope y'all have a blessed 2026. I'm out of here. Doors that way. Doors that way. If anybody is still here watching, just want to let you guys know, right as New Year's rang in, we did beat the 5,000 subscriber mark, and we're currently at 5,003 subscribers. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a blessed New Year. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.